Okay, I will call to order the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners formal session for March 21st, 2024. It is 10 o'clock in the morning, and I will go ahead and lead everyone in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Commissioners calendar session, item C, we've got lipstick next Wednesday, I think it is, the 27th at 4 o'clock. And of course, next week is spring break, although none of us get spring break. So let's see, I think I sent this over via email, but we have the traveling Oregon memorial wall for Vietnam vets that is coming into town Friday the 29th. And the YCSO will be escorting them, I believe, from Dayton. But they requested that we be there at 1 o'clock at Evergreen. I'm not really sure where at Evergreen, but somewhere. Right in front. Right in front, probably. Yeah. So we can get that added. That's the 29th at 1. Anything else to add? No? Okay. All right. Item D is public comment. This time period is reserved for public comment on any topic other than an agenda item, a quasi judicial land use matter, or a topic scheduled for a public hearing. Looks like, I don't think we received any written comment prior to this morning, but we do have a couple folks in the audience. And I'm going to go ahead and start with Janice Dysinger. Janice, if you want to come forward. Welcome. And if you could please state your name and address for the record, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair Checker. Janice Dysinger. I'm at 32235 Southeast Pipeline Road in Gresham, Oregon.
Welcome.
Thank you. I wanted to just comment on some ballot counting controversies that are going on around the state right now because of the directive. So ORS 246.200, it is about the counting of our ballots. County clerks are to conduct elections. They're the authority. They're the ones that count the ballots in Oregon. 246.120, directives, instructions, and assistance to county clerks. It gives the Secretary of State the authority to write rules, not change statutes. 254.485 gives the clerks a choice. Ballots may be tallied by a vote tally system or by a counting board. It's their choice. Administrative rules do not win over legislative enacted laws. 254.485 gives the clerks a clear choice to choose to count their ballots by a counting board or by a vote tally system. The directive that the Secretary of State Fagan put in place last year, I gave you a copy of that. And of course, I'm not finding mine right now, but it's Directive 2022-4, and it removes the clerk's ability to count by counting board unless they have a jurisdiction of less than 500. This changes the jurisdiction basically to the whole state instead of to the county. The directive must be challenged. It's up to the county clerks, or we're going to just take away their power. I would suggest writing a letter using the ORS 183 procedures and or calling your sheriff. I talked to Representative Ed Deal about this, and he assured me that the legislature would defend their rules that they've enacted to the 254.485, excuse me, it's .485. I keep saying 483, but it's 485. This is clearly the clerk's choice. I've seen many hand counting of ballots done after the election because we use it primarily to check and see if our vote tally system is working. So it's a superior method. Oregon uses a hashtag method. After they've counted their ballots, they separate them into piles of choices. So choice A, choice B, choice C. And then they count those up in stacks of 10 and they alternate the stacks of ballots like this until they get to 100, and that's how they do it on the table. It works. I've seen it work. They do it pretty quickly, and it can still be used just the way it is. I found a better method for hand tallying, and I've given you a little sheet that's called the Missouri method, and I'm working with many people around the state to try to show them how simple it is. You've got a vote tally sheet in front of you. It's actually, when you use it in practice, these are just 5 selections, but you can have 30 or so across the page. And each choice on the ballot is given a number. And then when that choice is read, they'll say the office, the candidate, and then their name, and that it's 1 or 2 or whatever number it is on the ballot. And then each one of the clerks at the desk has a separate marker and marker color, and they just dot according to the numbers. And when you get down to the bottom, you don't have to worry how many hashtags you have because it's all numbered. All the spots are numbered on the sheet. So it makes it very easy. You just go to the last marked spot and say it's number 52. You know that candidate got 52, and you put 52 at the bottom. And then when they get all through with their sheet for that, they fill that sheet out. They have other sheets, and I've given you kind of a summary of them here. They're put on the next page. And then all of these different procedures are put in line onto the sheet, and then it's counted up with it's easy to calculate the difference. I mean, not the difference, but the total at the bottom. And at the end of the day, you have your count, and each one of these sheets is all signed by the person who did it. And so you have a record of who counted it, what their count were. It's double counted, so there's 2 people at each clerk's counting board, and they all have to agree at the end of each section that they both got the same count before they go on. So you have an accurate method of accounting for all of the ballots as you go along, and you have a total at the end of the day, not 3 weeks later. So it's very efficient. They've recently done this, well, they do it in Missouri all the time, but they're doing it in other states now, and it's becoming a very popular method to use. And I wanted to also remind you that Clarence Thomas said elections enable self-governance only when they include processes that give citizens confidence in the fairness of the election. At the end of election day, you want all of the workers to agree that the ballots were counted accurately, that candidates on either side can have confidence in how the election was conducted. It's done in an open room. It's recorded on video. All of the sheets are there to be seen by anybody at any time, and all of the ballots are there. I have this entire counting method from Missouri. You're welcome to have my notebook if you'd like to have it to study.
Great, thank you, Janice. I appreciate all the work you've put in over the years to ensure transparency when it comes to our elections. And we tried to get our county clerk here this morning to maybe talk about some of these issues. She wasn't able to make it, but I do think it might be a good idea to have her join us before the primary and go over some of her methods and just
I'd be glad
update
to
everybody.
have a tally team for her for them to demonstrate to her this method if she'd like to see it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Janice?
I appreciate the work you've done over the years. And I know that I brought many of these questions and concerns that have come to us, to our clerk, and she has been very patient and very forthcoming. I know this is a woman who does everything by the book. She is held in great regard by the Secretary of State's Office Election Division. She has managed to work through some very challenging circumstances, and the election workers that she's had for many years have had real fidelity to a real strict system of oversight. That being said, you can only work with what you have. So with every legislative change to the election laws, I know I personally have felt concerned about how things were going, whether it's motor voter, whether it's the 7-day postmark, all of those things. I do believe that personally, vote by mail is really one of those modes of voting that could really have some negative impacts. Add to that something which is brand new in the state of Oregon, but is being done in 13 other Democrat-run states, and that is a contract that was just signed with Logically AI. That is an artificial intelligence system which is now designed to pick up any election misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation. So basically, what we say about elections online in this particular forum will flag through this AI contract that the governor has signed, things that will monitor any kind of verbiage, any kind of discussion about elections. So it really is concerning to me, because it's a modern day version of the Ministry of Truth, where what you say, if it doesn't align with the popular narrative, can get you flagged as someone who's misinformation, disinformation. So I would encourage people to look into this contract, which has been signed. It is now in practice in the state of Oregon. It's called Logically AI, and it's going to be monitoring any AI discussions regarding elections going forward. That is concerning to me. Add to that all of the other issues with Oregon election law and some of the practices, which gets more and more loosey-goosey. You know, the controls become less and less more ripe for fraud. But thankfully, we have a clerk that is doing everything she can at the local level to really adhere to absolute strict standards of transparency. So thank you for being here.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
I want you to know that I do admire your clerk as well, and been very helpful to me on records requests. So I appreciate her too very much.
Thank you.
I wanted to also let you know that I, along with about 17 other people, have filed a lawsuit against Tina Kotek for the Logically AI loss contract, because we have radio announcers, we have people that do print media, we have legislators that are among the people there. I'm the Republican election integrity chair, so I have to report to them on all of these election issues in a public format. So these are troubling things that they're monitoring everything that we do. And I also had a group called Clean Voter Rolls, and had a Facebook page, and that was just taken down arbitrarily. I was given no warning, and it was just taken down. So my public social media has also been just disappeared, and they're reporting that the Secretary of State in 2020 had the Facebook person come in, and they said they would not tolerate anything that was negative about the elections on the public platform, and they would be taken down immediately. So that's why I think Facebook took my post down, as directed by the Secretary's remarks.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Not surprising, given what happened during COVID
Mhm.
and Facebook.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janice.
Okay, it looks like I have Anna Munson is next. Welcome, Anna.
Well,
Thank you.
If you could please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Anna Munson. I live at 230 Idlewood Drive, Southeast Salem, 97302. And
Welcome.
for full transparency, I want you to know that I am a candidate for Marion County Clerk. And that is aside but my interest in elections and my understanding of the hand counting technique. I just want to reiterate that in Marion County, on October 14th, we did a public conference, whatever, to show the public how easy and how simple hand counting is and can be, as well as we demonstrated at the state fair where we had people actually have, little fake ballots and show them how simple it was to dab or to fill in a circle that is numbered all the way down, so you don't even have to add up the number of votes. It's already pre-added there. And how we even had, like, people were laughing. A fifth grader could do it. We had fifth graders and fourth graders because kids are really, I want to try it. And they did. And parents and grandparents could see how simple and transparent this technique can be. I'm running for county clerk because of a lot of reasons, but I just want you to know that this is something that I have looked at, and can I do something about it? I don't know yet, but it is something that I think the state would be very smart in considering. I think the fact that each county is its own entity, and what I live in Salem. I went to the legislature. I looked at some of the stuff, and things are going away from the county level, which is one reason why I put my hat in the ring. Is that right? Anyways, because I don't want our counties to lose their autonomy, any more of it. And I'm just trying to do something to say, let's look at this. Let's open it up. Let's be transparent. Let's show everybody how it's done. What is the best way for our county, for our people, as for you, your people. That's what I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Okay, is there any other public comment, either in the room or if you're online, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, hearing none. We will move on to our department update. And today we are joined by our district attorney, Brad Berry, as well as our incoming district attorney, Kate Lynch. Welcome. That was an invitation if you want to come forward.
I assumed with the introduction that she would join me, but it was still lonely up here.
I'd be happy to join you.
Thank you. Yes, that's was the place I was going to start with, introducing Kate as, I would say the heir apparent, but that sounds a little stuffy. So I will say will be our next district attorney, no matter what happens timing wise with me. I get asked at least 5 times a day when I'm retiring. And so Kate and I have we've begun the process of trying to develop a transition plan to ensure that things go smoothly. We've talked about needs, and really we've spent a lot of time there, but there will be a lot of changes coming to the office that she'll have to guide the ponies on that as they do come in. I'll talk a little bit about some of those and kind of the general condition of the office, and spend a little time with needs. I want to start with, I would like to thank County Administrator Ken Huffer for his help on our budget. We've had some errors that he discovered as late as yesterday, which caused him a lot of work. We really appreciate that happening. I will say, because it's on the same kind of topic, Commissioner Berschauer, the sheet I gave you the other day needs to be modified, and I'll get you a clean version that has the updated figure. It's not that different in what we were talking about, the end fund balance, but there is a difference. So I don't want you to have working from the wrong thing as you're looking at it.
Sounds good.
So maybe I'll start there with budget stuff. Normally about this time of year, you're seeing requests from my office for add backs, because normally we've had to almost every budget. I haven't gone back and count them, but I'll bet 22 or 23 of the 27 or 28 budgets I've done have included add back requests. It's just the nature of the beast. We have modest increase that the county can afford to give us, but personnel just exceeds that. And my budget's 90+% personnel. So it's just, it's an inherent issue for us. Coming into the 23-24 budget, we had an unexpectedly high beginning fund balance, which really helped us through the year. In fact, helped us with the increased salary demands from both the DDA contract and the AFSCME contract for our ability to pay that. But that was further enhanced budget-wise, much to our chagrin, by having empty seats probably for the last year and a half. We've had at least one and at times 2 or 3 vacancies that we've had difficulty filling in a timely way. That too saved us a lot of money, such that that's the good side of it, such that the anticipated ending fund balance this year will really aid us into next year. But it comes at a cost. We've been working shorthanded. I will tell you, we keep up on our cases. That's the front burner at all times that we have to do. But there are other management areas that are impacted by our having empty seats. Just information that needs to be gathered, needs to be counted, needs to be looked at. I always use this one because it's easy for people to understand. One of the key numbers that I look at as a manager is our time to closing. In other words, from the time a case rolls in the door to the time we finish it, how long is that? Because obviously we want that to be as quick as it can be. We want justice, obviously, we want time for the defense to prepare, but we also don't want undue delay to ensure that victims are I'll just say tended to in a broad sense. One of the things that impacts our ability to watch that and to monitor that is case closure. We have to close cases. It's one of the only things that lives on our support staff desks that can be backburnered because it's not on fire. And so consequently, as Kate and I talk about how many, our time to closure, the other part of that is how many open cases do we have for any particular deputy at a time? Our numbers are just inaccurate. I point that out because it is a management tool that we can't effectively use unless we have the data appropriately inputted and timely inputted into our system. There's more than just that, but it's an example of where we are short. So when I have openings like we have literally for over a year and a half in my support staff positions, those things have to go by the wayside. I'm going to talk about other challenges that we've had and are anticipating, but that's just one of those where we talk about the benefit on the budget has a downside within the office and our ability to get things done in a timely manner. As I mentioned, we're in a good position going into 24-25 to the point where we are going to be asking for an additional person next year. And I'll talk more about that in a minute also. And feel free to interrupt me at any time if there's a particular question about a topic that I'm on. So let me talk a little bit about challenges that we are seeing and challenges that we anticipate coming, and I'll say within the near future, the next 18 months. First, as you are well aware, because you dealt with the issue with the sheriff's office, body cams are now really countywide. All of our agencies have body cams, and some even have patrol cameras. They're patrol cars. McMinnville's had that for a long time. They are now the last ones to come on with body cams. What difference does that make? Body cams are a significant time suck for our office. And let me see if I can explain why. You can have, let's say you have a code 3 call out, you have 4 officers arrive to a domestic, for example. They're on scene for an hour, and then arrest is made, not made, whatever they decide to do, and they go about their business. Eventually it comes to us referred for review. Up front, we have time necessary to review the body cam footage, and a 1-hour incident now encompasses 4 hours of body cam footage that needs to be, and I'll be very candid with you, we don't look at it all up front, but we have to review that in fact what we have ties to this case, right? Because we do get footage that comes on, State versus Brad that in fact is footage that was State versus Kate. And so we need to ensure that what we have tied to a particular file is with that case. So we have to review that up front. We have an obligation to discover that. So obviously we have methods in place to maximize our ability to get it promptly to the defense, and at the same time, do it in a way that is expeditious through the office. Much of that comes to us now through links to the Axon systems that all three, the Esso, Newburgh, and McMinnville have. Those are a big three. So we can access those by links. We can give the defense access to them by links also. But if there's an issue with that, that all comes back to us to figure out how to fix, whether it means occasionally, we were downloading all the thumb drives. We've discontinued that. One, it's expensive, but two, it's timely. It takes more time than just let's get the link to the defense. And then the big one really is trial prep. So up front, where we have that check to make sure what we have ties to the correct case, when we go to trial prep now, whereas if before body cams, I've just now added a half day's work for the deputy DA in trial preparation because they now have 4 hours of body cam footage and they've got to review it all. Anything that might be entered into evidence, not just review it, but it has to be redacted. And so the process can take a very long period of time for a 1 hour incident for us. So where I genuinely believe body cams are the right thing to have, they absolutely are. And I should probably share this. I think body cams will probably save us trials from time to time, right? It's all right there on video, the interactions. So just being honest, that will balance it a little bit, but certainly not balance what we're going to have to deal with the body cam. So we've begun that process. And when I talk here in a minute about an additional position, I'll share with you how this impacts what we're looking at there. I did mention the Axon evidence.com, which is our evidence access that we have to things like videos and audios and photographs and the like through the agencies. I don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but we know we're going to have some changes there. So our case management system is PBK, Prosecutor by Carpel, which I think you guys are at least familiar with by name, that's the system we use. Several years ago, as evidence.com became somewhat of a standard for evidence retention within law enforcement agencies, Carpel entered into an agreement with evidence.com, which allowed the two systems to mate up. And it was a benefit to Carpel, to the system, to allow their users to have easier access to this information. And it was a benefit to evidence.com because they then could say to law enforcement agencies, we have this tie with the major case management system for your prosecutors around the country, thus use us for an evidence maintenance program. We have now received word that evidence.com is going to charge prosecutors for access to that information. I don't know what that looks like yet. They've not told us what that's going to be. I was warned about it a year ago. And in fact, I'm on the Carpel Foundation, which is a nonprofit. And one of our fellow board members has already been assessed about $1 million a year. They have a large office, not even close to us. They have a very large office, but they're already being assessed that. So when I got this notice from evidence.com saying that it's changing and we're going to be charged for this, I reached out to Carpel saying, is this what we talked about 6-8 months ago? They confirmed that it was, and they were a little surprised that we'd not been charged yet. So I think there's a workaround there. I just don't know what it is yet, but we will be looking to figure out what we can do to maintain easy and expeditious access to evidence, as well as get it to the defense. But we may end up with a cost if we can't figure out the workaround. So that's just a heads up that's something I see on the horizon. Probably one of the biggest changes is the House Bill 4002 that you're well aware of, which reversed much of ballot measure 110. And there are many areas of that bill that will impact us. I'll just give you a couple. First, it will require some type of a diversionary program. I think as Commissioner Bershauer knows, none of us in law enforcement like the term deflection, at least locally. And so I continue to refer to it as diversionary. We are already in the process of having discussions countywide. Commissioner Bershauer has been at the table with us about what might this look like? What can we stand up? We have some scaffolding and infrastructure already in place through HHS behavioral health. We have kind of a model with the COS, right? The Crisis teams that go out already. So we know we have some of the ability to respond like that. But the broader programs, I'm sure you're familiar with the LEAD program that Marion County has. Much of that would require a lot of personnel 24/7, 365 days a year, not just management, but personnel for response and referral. We also don't have detox sobering centers. And on the back end of this, we really have a shortage of residential beds for people who are suffering from addiction. So what does that mean as we try to set up a program? Well, we have to work within what we have with modest increases based on the funds that will flow with it. And I think we've got extensive interest, and I'll leave it to the commissioner if I'm stating this wrong, but law enforcement is very engaged. HHS is very engaged. As you can probably tell from my discussion, we are very engaged in what we can do. I am not saying that we can do a LEAD program because candidly, I don't think we can do a LEAD program in this county. Might that be something that we aspire to? Perhaps so. But my guess is that we will build something that will work soon, and it will continue to be modified as we discover problems with the approach and we discover what are our successes with the approach. Not having the LEAD type program, I think, will provide challenges for us when we go to apply for the grants with the CJC. And this isn't really for public consumption yet, but I've actually already talked with CJC about our initial discussions to see what their reaction was. And I'll share this with the group next week, Commissioner Berschauer, about where they were. So my point being, though, that we are ahead of it. We are, as far as developing, some are ahead of us, but we're already on this, and it hasn't even been signed by the governor yet. So I think I'm proud of the team coming together, seeing the urgency, the work that needs to be done in a very short period of time, and I anticipate that we'll get that done. With 4002 comes the return to PCS, possession of controlled substance prosecutions. I will tell you, and I put my notes here, it is impossible for us to predict what that's going to look like. And I say that for a couple of reasons. First, it doesn't come till September, right? So things are going to be as they are until September, when once again it becomes a crime. The other thing, when we look back to pre-measure 110, and I have to look back to pre-COVID to see what our numbers were, because COVID had an impact on our numbers. But our last year of referrals, and this was actually in 2020, so COVID was coming on, we had 580 PCS cases referred to our office. So that's a whole deputy. I don't anticipate we'll see those same numbers, at least not in the short run. If we go with a attempt to diversion work, we work to divert people early on, that will mean they'll be delayed. So we go from September, where the contact happens, to what? They fail to maintain monitoring or fail to maintain engagement and treatment, which we're supposed to do, but we don't find out about that for 60 days. So that's a 60-day delay that we would have there. My point being that the initial contact on September 1, we may not, we'll see it for some purposes, because we're going to have to monitor those that are in those stages. We're going to have to track that somehow, so we know when it comes back. We'll have to figure out what we do with those. Do we technically decline them? Do we put them in a holding pattern? I just don't know what we'll do yet, and that will in part depend on what this program looks like. On initial review, we'll have to determine whether or not they should be eligible for this diversionary track on it. If we've seen them 2-3 times before, they're not going that track. If they connect with other crimes, they're not going that track. So with other crimes, we would have seen them anyway, right? So that won't impact us number-wise. It's going to be those sole PCSs that I have a very difficult time predicting what that's going to look like. And I would say, if Kate and I were just talking about transition plans, I don't think we'll see the full impact on that for at least 6 months. I don't know how we could see those numbers build to what we should expect for at least 6 months, probably more like a year. to have a feel for that. But it's coming at us. We know that wave's coming our direction. Commissioner?
And I think my concern with that is that law enforcement community is itching to do this and start to apply these, arrests or citations or whatever. So we're going to have this wave, this push from law enforcement coming at us, and we've got to be ready. And we only have until September to be ready. So that's a concern.
I think that's a good point.
I want to jump in here if I can. You
Mhm.
mentioned CJC, and I think we were all on that 4-hour call where there were so many questions because there are still so many unknowns.
And I apologize. I didn't know who all from the county was on the TV there. So I
hard to say.
wasn't sure.
No, but I appreciate you bringing that up because I had so many questions and I think everybody did. But what I wanted to ask is just from your perspective, from what you see, if we were to look at, for instance, our drug court model as being a component of this fix, do you see this being us having the capacity for that? And do you see us utilizing this like we have in the past, sort of pre-measure 110?
Good question. You guys have all met my wife and she would say, yes, Brad, what time it is, and he'll tell you how to build a watch. I'm going to try not to do that, not to answer your question, but it will take a little of that. So if we're talking first offenders, first time we've seen them, they won't impact drug court. And the reason is, for a decade now, since we've had JRI money, and which I think has been 10 years, since we've had JRI money and we've had the measure, well, essentially is a measure 57 drug court, adult drug court, we are only dealing with individuals who assess at medium to high risk. Many first offenders coming into the system, because we haven't seen them before, and it's not uncommon, they downplay their drug use. They don't assess at that higher level. So they would not be eligible to go into drug court. What we don't want to do is take high risk individuals and mix in low risk individuals. What you do is run the risk that you increase the criminality of those who are low risk, which that's why we don't do it. Studies have shown nationally on the drug court model that it should only be used on medium to high risk individuals. It's not overly effective on low risk, because often low risk accept treatment, accept this is what this is doing to my life, and will be willing to make changes before they become high risk and more criminal. But the short answer is, I don't think it'll have a significant impact on drug court. The question further, though, do we have capacity in drug court? The answer to that is yes. We can take more people in drug court. Do we have treatment capacity? I think the answer to that is yes. Traditional treatment that we have. I've been bragging wherever anybody will listen that we have had capacity for treatment in Lindsay's shop for 2 decades. If you walked in the front door, you will get treatment. You walk in asking for treatment. There's a lot of counties who, I don't know how they can't be envious of that, because they don't have even close to that model. And it predates Lindsay as executive director over there, as department head, over there. It's just been, we've had it for a long time and been very fortunate. That doesn't address the issues of detox, sobering centers. Right. We've never had residential bed capacity. So that will be impacted in the broader scheme, Commissioner, for us. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
We also, with House Bill 4002, we are returning to our ability to prosecute delivery of controlled substance. That was a big fix, really high on the list of important things with the DAs. As I made my notes, I forgot completely about it till Kate mentioned it this morning. So that will, again, increase our ability, and really, we should be there. That's the deep end of the pool, and that's where we need to be spending our time, obviously, is making sure that we're prosecuting those who are delivering, and especially with fentanyl and the ability, for really early drug users to be killed because of fentanyl, as well as the fentanyl poisoning of other drugs, which we have seen, and we've seen overdoses on somebody who thought they were using cocaine, for example. So that's something that we've paid a lot of attention to. We've continued to pay attention to it, but we really were Supreme Court or Court of Appeals? Supremes cut off our legs on our ability to get after delivery, constructive delivery cases. And now that we refer to as the Boyd Hubble fix is back. The other thing here, as we look at challenges related to 4002, is we are going to have staff and DDA time assigned to whatever diversionary program we develop. And I'll get more to that in a little bit as I talk about personnel. But as I mentioned, we're going to have to monitor. We're going to have to, we'll have to assign a DDA to that program. If you look at the LEAD program, for example, they have 1 or 2 deputies actually assigned to that program. That's all they do. We don't have those numbers. We're not going to have that kind of a need, but I can't ignore we're going to have to dedicate time, attorney time to that program. And that will depend on how the end program develops. What does it look like when we finally get there and get up and running?
Brad, on the delivery piece,
Mhm.
is it confined to within a school, or is that an additional, like an
That's an additional,
aggravating?
that's an aggravating
Okay.
factor. If you do it within, I can't remember what the final thing was. I think it was 500 feet of a school. It wasn't 1,000 feet, which we'd had before, but it's school, treatment centers, and something else. There are 3 it might be places where kids, like a park. I just don't remember what it is now. And that's an aggravator. What the
Okay.
court took from us was, you come into my house on a search warrant and you find I've got 150 fentanyl pills. I've got a stack of money, and I've got receipt records on my computer. That's constructive delivery. We can prove your delivery from that.
Mhm.
And they took that from us.
Okay.
So that's what's back, that part of it.
Okay, regardless of how close you are to a school or this or
Correct.
that.
We
Okay.
still have the DCS. If you're closer to school, then it may have an aggravating.
Okay.
Aggravated enhancement on the penalty, if I remember correctly.
Okay, thank you.
Another thing that we're seeing, I'm going to step away from 4002 unless you have specific questions about that. We have been seeing an increase related to public records issues. I mention them because they're a time suck for us. There are 2 aspects to the public records that we see. One deals with appeals. So somebody makes a request to the city of Amity. The city of Amity says, well, we'll give you this, but we're not going to give you that because we don't think it's, you're entitled to that. And then they appeal it, and they appeal it to us. For years, I did all of the appeals. Kay is getting an education. She's been doing them lately. She's been assigned certain people who make repeated records requests and repeated appeals to us. That they are really huge time sucks. The other thing we've been getting, and Christian can talk about a couple we've had recently, records requests directly to our office. The last one, I think the initial email run was 20,000 potential emails, about 24,000 potential emails. And I know that Christian's worked with the requesting attorneys to say, can we narrow this?
Mhm.
But then somebody's got to go through all those. And we have to, I know Christian wants us to do the initial review. I need to have staff do the initial review and decide what should come to an attorney. Then I'm going to have an attorney look at that. It's just, my point being, we get 1 or 2 of these. Literally, you guys know Carla Connor's retired. She's back upstairs today working on that public records request on it, and that's just part of it, the emails. So we're seeing that more and more. And I don't think that's going to change. We certainly, these records belong to the public. They're entitled to them. I don't have a problem with that. But there are certain records that are not public, that should not be public. We have attorney-client privilege that we have on it. We have attorney work product that we have to protect. There's all kinds of things that come with our records, let alone the time it takes to do the research and determine whether or not the city of Amity should have ponied up a water record for a particular house, right? Or something like that. So those come to us. I don't anticipate that the statutes are certainly not going to narrow. And I think as they broaden and make more transparency in the system, we're going to see more requests. And more questions are, what do we give them? The last thing somebody wants to do is turn over some HIPAA protected record and then they get sued.
Yeah.
So well, I think we'll see more of that. And it's something that we've noticed.
Have you noticed a pattern of appeals coming from mostly from cities or from the county?
I'm just going to think of the last few and then I'm going to give it to Kate because she'll remember. We had a records request that took a lot of time related to an event in Newburgh that included, was it body cam footage from Newburgh?
Yes.
Body cam footage. And that was a back and forth and back and forth. And finally, Kate did the opinion on it and issued the order on it. We've had that same requester, I think that was their third request related to records, something to do all within Newburgh. And then you've done the last few. Can you remember?
Here they are.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes, and I believe the ones that are most recent come from journalists.
Okay, that was my next question. Is it media that's appealing? Okay. Interesting.
And it's broad media. So someone who is a prolific, I don't mean this negatively, a prolific blogger.
Okay.
Will say I'm a journalist.
Mhm.
And then, and like, it's not that we don't get them from the Oregonian or the News Register or the Graphic and things like that. But the ones we're seeing are more, I'll just say not professional journalists in the sense of what we would typically consider someone. The one that I mentioned that Christian's been working on is from an attorney firm related to an incident that happened out of McMinnville. And they wanted all records related to the investigation and that. And it's a case that we spent a week in trial on. So it's a huge file kind of thing. So it just kind of depends. But the journalist part, I would really say are more amateur journalists than the conventionally professional. They may well consider themselves professional. Again, I don't mean that demeaning. I just mean it's not Gary Allen from the Graphic or, others. What's that? Okay,
Well,
new media.
They're still constituents, right? In many
Outlets,
cases.
And
So,
they're still members of the public.
right.
Yeah.
Right. I guess what I'm getting at is, are the appeals more from the city requests, are they more related to the cost, where they're appealing the cost of what
We've had
is-
both.
Okay.
We've had denial of particular records or parts of particular records.
Okay.
And then we've also had, we've had a few appeals lately on costs for fee waivers.
Okay.
And I'll say it right here, since we have the public listening, we have the last one I did was just a couple months ago, within the last couple months, I mean, I thought the cost to be exorbitant for what the record was. And so I waived it completely. But others are, I think, I have some obligation to taxpayers that if people especially are asking for things over and over and over, taxpayers should not have to pay for that. If you want it, great, we'll make it available, but I don't think that Yamhill County taxpayers should have to pay for that. There are exceptions to that, obviously, but we do get fee waivers for some of them.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is with statutory changes related to when you can set aside records of arrest and conviction, happened in it's either 2 sessions ago or the last long session. It's further back, huh? Yeah, it might have been not the last long session, but the long session before that. We have seen what went from maybe 100. The common term is expungement. That's technically incorrect, but I'll just use it. We've seen like 100 expungements a year go to 500 a year on us, and they require a lot of staff time. That's now beginning to drop off a little, but every time the legislature meets now, they're doing increased expungement. So 4002 includes an automatic expungement on it if you meet certain criteria. So we're going to continue to see a high level of those which consume, these are things that are now consuming time that we didn't have to really deal with before. So having just pointed a few of those things out, what are our needs? So as we're looking out into the future, we do have some needs. First, as I mentioned, we have in the 425 budget, we have budgeted for an additional FTE as a legal assistant. As we looked at it, we have needs for kind of all three areas in our office. We have need for another lawyer. We have need for another victim advocate, which we're really hurting on. In fact, you're probably well aware that we provide victim services at a much higher level, and we have historically at a much higher level than I would say any county in the state. That might be a little unfair, but certainly more than most counties in the state. The services we provide, and for the first time, Cecilia was in my office this week saying, "Oh, something's got to give." We either have to discontinue certain services that we're not mandated to do by a statute, or we have to have more people. We no longer can keep up with it. So we need another advocate, a lawyer, and we needed another support position. As we sat as a management team, and we talked about the pros and cons of only asking for one, what would it be? I looked at all these things I just mentioned where we know we're going to have demands and what we can do with higher level of support in handling things like public records requests, handling things like support to a diversion program that we might have, and things like that. And that's where we landed on an administrative support position rather than the other two. Not to mention, lawyers are more expensive, and advocates are not roughly the same. They're a little less than a legal assistant, but it doesn't change that we have the need. The other need that we have that is really significant is we don't have any space. I literally do not have an open desk in the office or a place to put one. Sarah Grabner mentioned as we were talking options, she says, well, if we got another advocate, I can put a desk by the door that's in the back of the office that we have locked in because we don't use it going into the grand jury hallway anymore. I can put one back there. It's a need we have. We can't ignore that we need more personnel. And a lot of it has to do with legislative changes. You know, when they come, I'm not going to tell you that we have a ton more cases. We will have PCS cases, but we have these other duties now that are imposed upon us that we've not had in the past. And they take time to get them done. So we have those needs, but again, I don't have the space to put them currently. We had plans for that. And then obviously as the commissioners and county admin said, we need to hold off until we get a bigger plan. I absolutely and totally understand that. But I have a bunch of wasted space that we can't use currently. And I recognize, I think Commissioner Bershauer was sharing with me some of the thoughts on that, on what the courthouse is, you know, what's going to be staying here, what's not going to be staying here. And obviously, depending on what those decisions are, if we were moved, for example, and our office became another big courtroom or something, that's a whole different remodel than what we might need. So we're not unmindful of it, and we're part of the team. We're part of the county team, but it's a need we have now. We're right this minute that we have. So those are kind of our big needs in the short run that we have, and I'll keep you guys. I talk with Ken all the time, but I'm certainly at any time happy to come say this hit us, and we, you know, bring you updates and reach out at those times as they come along. That's kind of where we are. That's what's new and improved. That's what's challenges for us as we have now. I'm really happy. I'm not talking that we're out of money this year. I think we'll have enough to get through next year also without a big hit. And looking over at Ken, he just looked at my budget. So we're in fairly good condition. But then I think we'll be back to where, you know, costs increase and the 2 or 3% or whatever we get is not going to match the 7% or whatever it is. And we'll be back giving you the same challenges we've given you in the past. Where do we take monies? What we have to establish priorities. What are they going to be? So that's where we are today.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Any questions for Brad or Kate?
Thanks.
And if
Kelly.
I can, just just in case before I'm trying to head off, before I start getting email requests or things like that about some of the budget stuff and what we're working on. We're in very preliminary draft form as far as the budget goes. We're going to be doing noticing for the upcoming budget committee here in the next week. And I hope to have the first version of what the FY25 budget, what we're going to be presenting to the budget committee posted to the website at that same time when we post that notice. I just wanted to put that out before I start getting requests
Yeah.
on what the numbers look like. What's been shared at this point is very draft, and departments and our budget team are still working on a lot of the narrative and balancing and everything and getting that package ready. So it'll be posted on the website here shortly.
To support that, literally, he got my corrected version to me yesterday, so, because we messed it up. So.
Well, we have new software, so it's been a steep hill to climb. Okay,
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
we will see you in about a month.
Thank you.
I'll see you next week.
Talking about, yeah, that's true. Okay, let's see.
Doesn't go unnoticed that Nacho's missing.
Yes, Nacho did not a
It's not sure.
company. Okay, so our work session, there's nothing on the calendar for today or the agenda for today. Consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. Okay, item H, old business. There's nothing today. Item I, other business. I1 is consideration of approval of agreement number 44300-000300039 between Yamhill County and the Oregon Health Authority for Intoxicated Driver Program Funding, IDPF, in the amount of $100,116.27 retroactive to January 1st, 2024 through June 30th of 2025.
And this supports services for those who have been adjudicated for DUII or minor in possession. So there are a number of different descriptions of what the money can be used for, but I would move approval.
Okay, any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Great, motion passes. Thank you. I2, consideration of approval of an agreement between Yamhill County and the City of McMinnville for behavioral health services in the not to exceed amount of $40,000 retroactive to March 1st, 2024 through February 28th of 2025. So this is a new agreement. I verified with Director Manfred that this has not, any iteration of this has not come before us before. There was some question of that, 6-8 months ago, I was presenting to the McMinnville Leadership Forum, and the mayor mentioned that we had this relationship in place with the county, which was kind of news to me. So
Right.
at that time, I think it was, they were simply talking about it, but this is the actual contract, if you will, the actual agreement. And you read the agreement and what it actually provides for the city. And I'm really thankful to see this come forward. I think in that the partnerships are not just with law enforcement, it's with the McMinnville, the Safety Task Force, and the group that was formed fairly recently to try and solve some of these issues of the challenges that they're facing in McMinnville with mental health, with addiction, with transience, vagrancy, all of those things. So I think this is it's a good way to sort of target our COS teams and help with some of those issues. I don't know, Commissioner, if you can describe maybe how they will specifically work with law enforcement and the city of McMinnville, the police department.
Well, we had discussion with Director Manfred yesterday, and basically they are going to be having meetings with the McMinnville Police Department and discussing with community members. There will be sort of after action. There'll be meetings along the way to address some of the issues, working with business owners, which is really the sort of one of the primary focuses here. And going around and just basically the parks are going to be visited, the downtown area, and also the best time to work with the store owners, making sure that they maintain those contacts. So a lot of the informational meetings, I asked about capacity. Do we have the COS capacity to address this? And I was assured that we do have plenty of capacity. And what I really like about this is not only is there going to be more of an emphasis on addressing the business owners' concerns, but also that there is going to be that connection to the police department, and also that they'll be having those meetings where there is some accountability is what's happening. Is there anything that's happening as a result of this? So it's not just one of those things where albeit it's city taxpayer money, it's still taxpayer money, but is it really going to net any benefit? And I think this is a pretty good program. So I'm encouraged by it.
And partially going back almost 2 years, McMinnville Industrial Promotions is really what spearheaded this and dumped the majority of money into it, almost 25 grand. So McMinnville is dumping another 15 for a total of 40. But, you know, McMinnville MIP really spearheaded this about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
I like the aspect, at least how it was explained to me, of it's more of a on demand. So when there is an issue, there's now a channel that goes to our Yamhill County Public Health, and then that team comes out, a 2-person team comes out and addresses it in a more timely manner.
Yeah.
So,
And education to the business owners of what to do, you know,
Mhm.
if you have an incident happening in real time.
it's a
what do you do?
communication channel, but to actually get something done is my understanding. So,
Right. And the de-escalation piece is
Yep.
big.
Okay,
So I'd move approval.
okay. Any further discussion?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. I3, consideration of approval of amendment number 6 to agreement number 180033 between Yamhill County and the Oregon Health Authority. Board Order 23-260, adding funding in the amount of $8,403.04 for a total amount of $4,124,845.88 for public health emergency preparedness and response, PHEP, effective through June 30th of 2024.
And this addresses the continuity of operations. There is some connection to Emergency Management Office, the Medical Countermeasure Program, and training on how to address the local public health authority statutory requirements. So this is something that has been ongoing. So I'd move approval.
Okay, is there further discussion, questions?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. I4, consideration of approval and notice of intent to award. I don't think that should say notice of intent to award. I think we did that already. On 3-7. Right? Okay. So,
Yeah, the board already did do the notice of intent to award. So I believe this
Okay.
is the requesting the approval of the contract.
okay, so I'm gonna edit the item to say consideration of approval of a construction contract to Roy Howe Construction LLC for the 2024 Albertson Road pavement repair project in the amount of $130,292. And note that we approved the intent to award on March 7th. And no protests were filed. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve as amended.
Is there further discussion?
No.
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Great, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, I would love to take a quick 5-minute break before we get into the public hearing. So we will be back at 11:10. Thank you. All right, welcome back. It is, does that say 11:14? Yes, man, I need glasses. Okay. We are coming back into our agenda and we are picking up at public hearings. J1 is consideration of a mass gathering permit application for the 2024 Memorial Weekend Boat Races event on May 25th and 26th of 2024. The applicant is Newburgh Boat Club and Columbia Outboard Racing Association. And we are joined today by Don Schmidt. Welcome. Good to see you again.
Morning.
Good morning.
And this is now the 76th Memorial Weekend Boat Races. 76th year.
Chair, want to open the hearing?
Okay, yes, I will open the hearing. And this is just testimony.
Yeah, it'll be
Okay.
testimony in support or a testimony in
Okay.
opposition.
All right, well, first. I
General
will-
testimony at the moment, yeah.
Good morning. I'm Don Schmidt. I live at 1604 North Meridian, Newburgh, Oregon, 97132. I
Welcome.
represent Newburgh Boat Club and also Columbia Outboard Racing Association. Together, the two groups are requesting the exclusive use of Rogers Landing starting at 6 o'clock Friday evening, May 24th through midnight, Sunday, May 26th. We also would like to be able to have camping on Thursday, May 24th, being that we do have a lot of people that come out of Seattle and they come down a day early to beat the traffic coming out of Seattle. We, as said earlier, this would be our 76th year of American Powerboat Association sanctioned races here in Newburgh. We have usually a little over 100 racers plus their families. About half of them will camp down at the river, and the other half will be hotels and friends around town and in the community. A lot of the racers go out and eat in the community during the time that they're there. They buy gas, food, all that stuff, so it does help the economic part of Newburgh quite a bit. We are known to have a very driver-orientated course, and we have some of the best drivers around that comes down and race in Newburgh. And to give you an idea of one of the guys, he's actually the national championship unlimited hydroplane champion this year for unlimited hydros, and he races at Newburgh every year along with his son. They're both national champions.
Nice.
It just kind of gives you an idea of the quality of drivers that we have. That probably 40% of the drivers that we have there minimum have had national championships, are national champions. And they come to Newburgh because they learn how to drive at Newburgh. You have anything to add, Bob?
No, you're doing great.
So that's our request.
Are your shirts from last year, 75 years?
Yes.
Yep.
Nice. Okay.
And we do have a new design that we were working on
For this year?
for this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So there is well, I guess I should call for additional testimony.
Yeah.
Before we get into the list of items. So if there's any additional testimony, whether for or against, and if you're online, please raise your virtual hand. Okay. Technically, I have to close the hearing.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we're ready.
We'll close out
Great.
our hearing and open up deliberation. So commissioners, did you see the list of, I think it's seven items that we have to approve? Okay. Should I just go one by one?
You could approve the application in a single motion. I would
Okay.
point out that as in years past, they have also asked for a waiver of the mass gathering application fee. Historically, that's been in recognition of the charitable aspects of the event as well as the economic development impacts of the event. So that's up to the board. each year to decide whether or not to waive that. I think historically it's been reduced to $250, and that's just to recognize some of the publication notices we had to publish in the paper for the hearing, and then the other administrative costs. So unless there's a different request being made this year, that's generally what the fee has been reduced to in years past.
Would we have to note that in approving all of the?
Yeah, I would
conditions?
say that would be a good item to include in the motion. Yeah.
Remind me what the total application fee is
Oh,
normally?
it's somewhere north of $2,000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It changes annually. It's equal to, I think, what and I may get this wrong, but a conditional use permit application is at that time in the planning office. It's tied to planning application, similar types of fees there. So
One thing the club does do also is, we spend a weekend or two before the races going down
Right.
and help clean up the park and cut some of the brush and get it so you can actually see the river. But as we get older, it's getting harder and harder to do.
Okay, so last year we would have, I want to say we approved 200 or 250 last year, 250. Okay.
I
that
think-
sounds right. I'd have to
Yeah.
go
I
back and
think
double
that's
check.
I had
but
250 in my
250,
mind.
yes.
but-
I do
Has
believe
been.
so. Yeah, that's what it has been that each time
What's-
I've been
What's that?
to 250.
250, yes.
So any questions about
No.
any of it? We'll make a motion.
I would move approval of accepting the application as amended.
With
And
the
what's-
permit fee at 250.
What's
As
the
a-
amendment?
The amendment is that the mass gathering park fee would be waived except for $250.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, the amended motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We
very
look
much.
forward to
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll
That would
never
be a great
forget
time.
inadvertently in the early 90s, we had a pontoon boat we put in on San Salvador, which was like, you'd go in through St. Paul. And then we came in the back way, and as the closer you get, the louder it got. And I'll never forget why we were there too, because of how early the summer was. It was like 92 degrees that year. It was just amazing. That was the first time I actually got to see it in person that close up. They were
Yeah.
just starting to come around the bend. It was awesome.
Awesome.
Well, you're all welcome to come down Saturday and Sunday. We do have, this year, we're gonna have the North American Championships for the 300 hydros, which are a little 10-foot boat with a Yamato motor on them. And they're about a 60-mile-an-hour boat. And we get 10, and we only allow 10 at a time on there. So we have to do brackets to get to the finals. And these guys are a little more than aggressive drivers.
Yeah.
Robin's racing, man.
Feel the need for speed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And commissioners, what we'll do is we'll prepare the actual board order and permitting document, and that'll come back before the board for final approval. And it'll also have these details outlined in it again
Okay.
in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. And that meets they had a requirement with,
There's some requirements to submit
The other-
incurrence and some traffic safety plans and things like that, but Noelle will work with them to make sure we get all that paperwork submitted and then collect the fee. And once we've got all that in hand, then we'll bring that document back before the board.
all right, sounds good.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you very
again.
much.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
Thanks a lot.
And I've only given her the fee.
Oh,
Okay.
perfect. All right, check
We
that off the
have,
list.
Real tight time schedule as far as getting the application in the American
Right.
Powerboat Association. So after we get done here and we get the board order, it's gotta go to the state and the sheriff's office and the Marine Board too, to get all their approvals.
Okay, well, we will turn it around as quickly as possible, so.
Go ahead. we have to have everything in 45 days before the actual event.
As soon as possible, then, yeah, we'll. Get you more idea on that.
Next week.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our public hearing. And it brings us to announcements. I have quite a few announcements. I guess I'll kick us off here. The filing deadline has obviously passed for the May election. And I just wanted to say congratulations to a few folks in the county that are running unopposed. So by default, they will be our elected officials. The Deputy District Attorney, Kate Lynch, who was here earlier, she will be our district attorney. So congratulations to Kate. Derek Wharf, looks like he will continue to be our county assessor. Chris Bledsoe will continue to be our county treasurer, and obviously Sheriff Elliott is running unopposed. So even though he's on the ballot in November, he will be our sheriff, continue to be our sheriff. So congratulations to all of them, wonderful representatives of Yamhill County. We're very blessed to have them. And then also congratulations to Representative Lucetta Ulmer, who is running unopposed as well. So she will continue to be the state rep for this city and most of the county. So AOC Measure 110, House Bill 4002 implementation meetings, commissioners, I think we were all on that meeting on last Monday. We talked, I think we covered most of it, but the gist is that these lead programs, while they're very attractive and really pretty successful, especially in Marion County, the funding mechanism for that is going to be an enormous challenge. Marion County now spends about $1 million a year just on the sort of infrastructure of lead. And that doesn't count any of the recovery, addiction treatment beds or residential treatment beds. So I think I'm concerned about having too much of one or the other, right? We either have an opportunity to invest in a lead program or we have the opportunity to invest in residential treatment beds. And we really can't have one without the other. So it's presenting a challenge. And so we will continue to work through what that might look like in Yamhill County. I have a meeting next week with DA Bradbury, as well as all of our law enforcement officials and HHS and the sheriff. So we'll continue to talk through that. We've now kind of brought in the court system as well to see how they feel about some of this stuff. But the funding tables, there was a lot of talk about funding. It wasn't super clear on the call, but it looks like Yamhill County is slated to receive somewhere in the range of $500,000. And the grant is really it's a planning grant. So it's not actually to implement a program per se. You can use it to plan what a lead program might look like in Yamhill County, but that actually, it doesn't get us a step closer to deflection because we have to fund the deflection program itself. So a little frustrating. I think you probably got the sense that some counties, smaller counties, are feeling quite frustrated because money is great to plan for something, but if we can't afford what it is, then you sort of hit a brick wall. So more on that in the next few weeks. One of the interesting things they did say, though, is you can use the funds on crisis response teams. And we already have a pretty robust COS program. So that's a possibility where we could sort of go that route. Brad mentioned the new U misdemeanor starts September 1st. There's also about $10 million for jail medication program. So we used to do that. We are looking at adding that back so that we can do detox in our jail through medication. And so potentially some of that funding would come here. And I think that's about it for now. And we're still gathering information, so. Hampton Lumber announced this week that they are gifting $1 million to the Barbara Roberts C-Tech program, which is incredible. As you remember, Kid, I don't think you were here yet, but we gave, was it 1.4? Trying to remember the exact amount, 1.4 million to the C-Tech program to help them get up and running. And they've been in a process of gathering more support to have that move forward. And it looks like they're going to start with the fire tower and the fire science program because they can build that sort of separately outside of the main building. So that's exciting to see more partners come on board. And I look forward to touring them. We're going to be touring their construction site in April. So fair ambassador applications due tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know how many we have so far.
4.
Oh, we do have 4. Okay, that's good. I don't think we had any last time. So those are due tomorrow. We just want to send out a quick reminder. Commissioner Johnston and I toured Radius Recycling, which is Cascade Steel, and very cool. I think that was your 3rd time. It was my 2nd time. It was your 2nd?
And I've seen, first time was like best ever. And this one topped it because I got to go see where they actually take the molten into the molds. And I never got to see that at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The first time I went.
Absolutely coolest thing ever. I could do that.
Yeah.
Every week I could go there and watch that. I could watch the electrodes just devour the scrap metal because it just sits there and just shakes everything. And you can watch those giant power lines going to the electrode just jumping because of the energy going through them. It's just phenomenal. It's so stinking cool.
Oh my
And
gosh.
there's not a lot of tours you can do anymore where they actually let you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's molten lava coming out of that cauldron. as
Yes,
they're
I was
shocking
a
it, and
tad
we're
bit
walking
nervous
right
about
next
this.
to it.
Yeah,
That's the coolest thing ever. You
They're
can't
like,
just
oh,
get
5
into
minutes.
it
We'll be
anymore.
good in 5 minutes. I'm like, are you sure? Because it's still coming out of the pit.
I was there last year, I think it was last year, and got the whole presentation and walked through and thought to myself, this is actually happening. And there, people are walking around, you know, with their hard hats and everything as if it was nothing. And
Yeah.
you've got a train that pulls in there
Yeah.
and these massive, massive truckloads of rebar that are going all over the country and getting on trains. And it's sort of like kind of impressive that it starts here because, you know, the whole rebar connection. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
it's worth going
Yeah.
to.
The first time they didn't have the arc furnace going. So we didn't get to see any of that, but it was neat. Gospel Rescue Mission dinner. That was wonderful as usual. Kay Sawyer is, as Dave Hageberg put it, is just an absolute saint
Yeah.
and a blessing to the county. She has not taken a paycheck since she started, which how many years ago was that?
And the
Uh,
hours that she puts into doing that.
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. So.
And it's not daytime hours.
No, she spends the night there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they're focused on the program house next. So 1 to 2 year program house for, I think, up to 10 men specifically that would help them get back on their feet and just provide a more stable program for them long term.
And that was one of the
Sometimes,
very
yes.
first, well, that was one of the most memorable foreclosure donations. We had the opportunity to either sell it or to make sure that the mission was able to access it. And that was their plan all along, is that, you know, 30 days is great, but it's not going to get folks to the place where they're employable and they're stable on their feet. So that large lot, great opportunity, and it's finally happening.
And then just the last one is recognizing the sheriff, Sheriff Elliott and Under Sheriff Bowdle, Captains Brown and Whitlow hosted the Volunteer Appreciation Banquet last weekend. And I don't think we have had, since I've been here, we haven't had a group recognition for all of the sort of ancillary programs that support the sheriff's department. And it was all of them. And they did just a phenomenal job. The sheriff, you know, basically went after the Presidential Service Awards. So they all received Presidential Service Awards. And some of them received the Lifetime Achievement Awards. I want to name them because I just think they're amazing. So the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Awards went to Brian Wright from Aries, Daryl Flood, who is Aries Cert and VRU, Jane Wolf, Aries Cert and VRU, and Mike Beals, who's Aries. So congratulations to all of them. If you've ever, you know, served on one of these types of, in one of these types of groups, it's really, it feels like service. It feels like you're serving your community. And you get excited to wake up, even though you're spending all of your time and all of your money on it. It just is such an honor to participate. So we're very thankful for them. And it was a beautiful day.
Yes.
And the Leslie Lewis Pavilion had the big roll-up doors open and they were barbecuing. It was just awesome. So,
Brand new roll-up.
are they new?
Yep.
Okay, because I walked in and said, when
Most
did that happen? Okay.
And they had a
Nice.
sheriff's vehicle parked inside, which I thought was interesting. While everybody was sitting, eating and grabbing their food, it was look over and see a sheriff's vehicle right inside.
Yeah, it was cool. I think that's it for me. Busy week. Anybody else?
Not really.
Parks Board met last night. They had 3 options for master plan proposals and they have chosen one and it will be coming before us. Mark and Travis are gonna work because there's no prices with them yet. So they're gonna do some back and forth with who they selected and then they'll come up with price options based on what we're gonna ask of them to do. That was exciting. It's moving, it's progressing.
So we did an RFP with no monetary value.
I think that's a
You
qualification-based
can't ask.
RFP. Yeah, sorry, no, for something like that, because I believe landscape architects or that type of firm falls under a qualification-based
That's right.
procurement. And so engineering and architecture, some of those things, we have to make the selection based on qualification, and then we go into negotiations on the contract price.
Okay.
Was this for the master plan? Yeah.
I
So-
had the same question. I'm sitting there, I'm like, excuse me, we've already chosen one and we don't even know how much. But there's still phases along this where like, no, we can go modify or ask them to do less or more or whatever based on what prices they come back, or we can say no.
Right.
It
And then
could-
if you do say no, it goes to the next ranked
Right.
respondent. So there are
Which-
ways to ensure that the pricing is acceptable.
And this is actually round 2. The first round, we only got 1. And with Jody's help, she actually did a little outreach of some kind. And
Who Oregon buys every
drummed
year.
up business to where we actually got 3 now. But the first one gave us a price and they weren't supposed to give us a price.
So have we spent any of the $100,000 for, okay. So that will be applied to whatever we choose.
It all depends on the start date. The funds haven't been spent yet. They're still obligated in ONC funds, and I have them budgeted for next year in anticipation that the project's probably not going to start, or a portion of it, to make sure it's still available.
And the current makeup of the Parks Board is phenomenal. I mean, they are, as we're discussing the proposals that they were choosing and then ended up on, they're already like, well, for the outreach, the public outreach, which is some of the most expensive parts of these proposals. They're like, well, if we can pull on some of that ourselves with, 11 of them volunteering to go, do some of this outreach for the
Mhm.
surveys and stuff. So they're all over it. They're willing to put in their own time. Very engaged. Absolutely. I love it. I love going to those meetings. I love it.
Great. Okay. All right. Anything else? None? Okay.
Okay, good.
Nothing else for the good of the order. I will adjourn the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners formal session for March 21st, 2024. It is 11:40.